You are listening to episode 82 of the Unnecessary Nonsense podcast, and on this episode, we shall discuss the Blue Jays doing a thing. NBA hot shot, or top shot, or something shot. The point is there's a shot, and there's the NBA involved. We're also going to talk about the Super Bowl that shall not be named. And by that I mean, we'd rather not name it, but it's going to happen anyway. So we'll talk about it. And then Dave has some wrestling questions. It's staying in the podcast because I never miss an opportunity to talk about the GOAT of all Carnies and things that may be related to that. All that and more on this episode of the Unnecessary Nonsense podcast. I would never deprive the people the chance to hear about the Carny GOAT.
That's true. You know what? As GOATs go, Vince McMahon is the Carny GOAT.
The undisputed GOAT. Unlike other faux GOATs out there who will be named later, Vince McMahon is the undisputed Carny GOAT, without a doubt.
True. Although it's probably time for him to hang them up too.
Yeah, well, it happens. He's lost a little off his fastball. All right, I'm Carlos. That's Dave.
So this week, more of the same, pretty much. I will tell you two things. I've been watching Dark Side of the Ring, which we will get into when we talk about our favorite Carny.
Yes.
Maybe favorite, maybe not. Anyway, and then I also will tell you that I took George tobogganing for the first time today, and he loved it.
I see.
So, and it's always great when you have a little kid, you don't need a big hill, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think it's one of those things that when you're a kid, that tobogganing is fine. I just found that once I started to be able to feel cold.
It's so true, eh?
It's like, what happens? I say, I'm over this, man. I am so over this, you guys. So over it.
And I hear it gets worse the older you get.
It really does. It really does. Ambient temperatures in the negatives. Just saying.
Should we tell the people? Should we tell them that you hit a new record this week of ambient temperature inside your house?
Yes. Well, my main floor, my bottom floor, where the office is located, but I am protected. Those of you who see the video will be able to see. I am protected by the vaunted HAL 1000 unit, which is pumping warm air in my general direction and keeping me from freezing as I speak. But
I think it also should be noted that you live in a 2-floor place, both of which are above ground. I feel that's an important note.
Oh, no, imagine if I was subterranean. I would literally, it's like, I don't need
to. You could actually be warmer, though, with all the, the snow on top. Who knows?
I don't think it works that way. I've never seen, most basements are pretty cold.
True.
If I had it colder in a below ground basement, I actually would not need a freezer. I would literally just be like, where is it? Oh, Dave, go get the cold beer. Where is it? The basement. Oh, the refrigerator's in the basement? No.
It's just an empty room with food.
Yeah. It's like, what happens? It all stays right there. It's fine. Ignore the body. Just move past the body and get to the beer.
So how cold was it, Carlos?
-6 centigrade. Ambient temperature.
In his living room, people. In his living room.
And Dave knows. It gets cold there.
I do.
It gets cold there and it gets hot. I get all the extremes. The full benefit of the Canadian weather.
All in Carlos's living room. All for free.
Yep. Yeah. So in a nutshell, this is why Carlos is going to have to do a better job of putting money aside to buy the stupid heat pump, because this thing doesn't have central heating. So, and I'm as I like to say, I am hashtag too old for this shit.
Yes, and the electric heat that I think is circa 1970 that is in the place does not kick
baseboard heating.
Yes, does not kick heat out at all.
No. You'll be warm if you basically lay on it.
True. That is true.
That's about, your clothes might catch fire because
as soon as you get a centimeter or more away, though, it might as well not be on.
No, it's just a wall of cold air, just a pure wall, like an actual wall. You can physically feel the difference if you're in a room that has been heated and then walk out. You'll actually hit a wall of cold air. It's actually pretty impressive. I imagine that's like one of those polar bear people who dives into ice would feel like, except it's air and not water.
Yeah, that's true, actually, probably.
But if you want to experience what it would be like almost to do the polar bear thing with the water element of it, take a shower and then walk into the cold air. Just saying.
A cold shower.
No, it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It can be as hot as you want. As soon as you step into the cold air, it doesn't matter anymore. Just saying. Just throw it out there. Yeah. So anything else going on?
No, that's pretty much it, I'd say, for this one. How about you?
Yeah, pretty much good. I think this week has been solid because for the most part I was left to my own devices. I needed to completely reconfigure part of the system there. They decided to completely change the way they did their business with how
Of course they
they
did.
process invoice. Yeah, yeah. So I basically had to rebuild it from scratch, and then I had a guy I needed to work with, and I needed to kind of supervise and make sure he did his part of it. But I timed out everything really well, actually. I was very pleased, and we got everything documented so that it's like, what did you do? Here's the document. Don't bother me. So
Nice.
yeah, we wanted to make
If
sure
only
like
we could all do that pretty much with everything we did
yeah.
to do.
Yes, I wanted to make sure we had that down so that it's like, you want to read? Here you go, read it. It's all here. It's a 20-page document explaining what I did on Friday. Literally 20 pages, just explaining what I did on Friday.
Nice. That is a
Yes.
lot of pages.
It is, but you need all of it because it explains every single. Without getting into the weeds, I have to build these approval chains to have different approvers come on in these different scenarios. I built 12. So I needed to divide, and they have to work together. So like, if one thing's off, it breaks the whole set of chains, and everything breaks, and it's no good, and everyone dies. I think.
Somehow I'm not sure that's actually what happens, but hey, I don't
Well,
work there, so
fortunately, my chains always work, so we will never find out.
fantastic.
But if they did, probably people would spontaneously burst into flames, lives would be lost, and it'd be a national tragedy. The things that I prevent around here are just awe-inspiring.
It's true. Considering you don't get any news unless it comes in the Epoch Times.
Listen, man. Do you have any idea what a waste of time it would be to see the actual news? Like an actual total waste of time. And we won't get too deep into it, but literally Dave was like asking me a question about something that supposedly happened locally. And I wasn't able to find any record of it. Like, I'm sure it did. But it was one of those things where like, and when he's messaging me, he's like, what was it? I think you said like there was something in a tree, or how did you
Oh
phrase
yeah,
it?
no, yeah, there was a typo.
Yeah. But the typo was like ghost in a tree. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, or something. Yeah,
And I'm trying to figure out like, what in God's name
yeah.
are you referring to?
The typo was such that it made no sense what I was asking you, or it changed it so it was completely different from what I was actually asking you about.
Well, the best part about it is that like most of the stuff you say or type out makes no sense. So it was only marginally more complicated. I'm gonna keep the part where you're frozen because what I said was still funny. We'll get
Oh,
back to the
dude, totally, please do.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, so regardless, so we're gonna move on. You may have noticed if you saw the video piece, you'll see a little editing portion in there. But what I said stays. What I said stands. But anyway, so the point is, we're gonna get into. So that's really what the way of the week it is. I'm hoping now that we're rolling into February, like in my mind, January was almost this weird like ramp up month for 2021. It was kind of like getting into it, and obviously we're feeling the chill and the breeze. So I think one of the big things that I want to do, and I've mentioned it already before, one of my goals in the first part of the year is to get some stuff around here done, and that's still the plan. But now I kind of want to ramp into it now that we head into February because psychologically I kind of needed to get past January. I think that the thing is like I just was trying to get my head around this whole beginning of the year, and I'm like, I just need to get past January in my head just to be like, okay, it is 2021. Okay, now we're going. Okay, sure. So at least, if nothing else, at least moving around the house will keep us warmer. So it's something. It's something. So we'll try to do that. So anyway, so let's talk about the baseball piece a little bit first.
All right.
We must discuss because it is critical. We cannot be left with an episode without dealing in the sport run by that guy.
Anytime you get that in, you got to get it in, right?
Hard work was done. People worked hard, slaved to get that beautiful clip done, put in there.
It's true.
And I don't care if it was last season; it's still magnificent.
It will never get old though. As long as he's commissioner, that works.
Correct. Exactly. So anyway, so in the spirit of that, the Jays have made some moves. We'll focus on the Jays today because there's although after we talk the Jays thing, I'll quickly touch on the Nolan Arenado potential news. It looks like it's done, but we'll see. There's a couple of things to finalize, but at least potentially there's a deal in place. So I'll leave it to you. You lead on this one. Which Jays thing do you want to refer to?
Well, might as well. We could start with George Springer. I mean, that's old news for people who follow it. That's happened for a while, so we know that it's there. But the Jays signed I would say a major free agent who was out there, George Springer.
He's a solid player. He's a solid
formerly
player.
of the Houston Asterix. Mm-hmm. And, I think he's a solid player. And I think he's an improvement on, say, like Randall Grichuk. Yeah, for sure. Yep. Obviously, it does create a bit of a logjam in the outfield. I'm not quite sure how they're going to do that. I imagine Teoscar Hernandez will stay in left field. I imagine. And then Springer could play. I think he'll end up playing center field. And then it's just a question of, do they keep Grichuk or do they slide somebody else in that spot? I think there's, but in terms of like, does this make the team better? Yeah, it makes the team better. And I think, Springer has spoken to it himself, basically being about how excited he is with this lineup. And I mean, this is my thing that I was talking to actually my mother about this when we were talking about the trade the signing and the other signing we're going to talk about.
Now you refer to your mother, the actual sports fan of the family.
Yes, that's correct.
Not like the rest of you fraudulent people.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And she was saying, basically, I said, okay, well, here's the thing, right? Like, I'm excited about these moves. I think the Jays have done things, and if they kept the 8-team playoffs that they had before, Jays are in it for sure.
Yeah.
The question is, have the moves they made make them good enough to make the playoffs if only 4 teams make the playoffs?
I think that's a valid concern. I will say there's 2 things that have struck me. So I've been observing, but peripherally. I've mentioned already in the past that Major League Baseball has conspired to make me less of a baseball fan as years go by. Obviously, my love of baseball will never die, but my love of Major League Baseball is like it's currently in terminal condition. It's in the ICU. It's currently being held on with a ventilator as well as a blood transfusion machine. Like, they're trying so hard to make me not care about their iteration of the sport is what I'll say, or what I'll call it. However, despite their best efforts, I do still pay a little bit of attention to what it is. I will say 2 things struck me. Number 1, I think it's interesting that this is the first time I can remember in a while where, they talk about the Jays being players or free agents stuff. This is the first time I can say that they were able to swing some deals, and it looks like they signed some free agents. They were actually able to land a couple. Mm-hmm. And they were, at least on paper, in contention with a bunch, although that's normal the last couple of years. But this feels like the first time they actually landed a couple. Are they the final pieces to World Series puzzle? No, probably not.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But I do appreciate that they were at least in the running. We're actually able to land we're actually able to convince some people to take their money, which is good.
Yeah, always.
Yeah, and it seems like they're not like doing it with great reluctance. It feels like no, at least they have some interest.
Yeah, right. And the Springer, and he signed how many years? Do you know offhand?
I can pull it
because he signed a sizable contract too, right? It wasn't they also signed Marcus Semien as well from Oakland.
Yeah, it was
who was a free agent on a 1-year deal. Where he ends up playing, I think he's going to end up playing either third or shortstop. Sounds like,
looks
right?
like he's a free agent again in 2027. So it's a pretty decent length deal.
Yeah. That's a for the J. So I think it's like a 6-year contract, right?
Yeah,
I think that's
it sends a good message though. It sends a good
Absolutely.
message though. It sends like, hey, we're able to convince somebody. It's one of those things like they're still not a complete team. Everybody's identified that the issue is pitching right now, but lineup wise, offensively, they look strong. And the big X factor, in all honesty, we'll talk about it again. The big X, and we'll talk about it more as we get closer to the season. The big X factor is, can Vladimir Guerrero Jr. make a leap forward? Year 1 was okay. Not amazing, but okay. Year 2 was, a wash because of COVID and because of the weirdness of the season and that whole combination of things. We know that. So the question is, can you make progression? I don't need you to leap to being an MVP candidate. I'm not asking for that. What I'm asking for is, can you progress forward? Can you be a mid-20s, high 20s home run guy who gets some RBIs and hits for a decent average and stay in shape throughout the season? Really, I want to see commitment to the craft is really what I'm looking for. If I put it in the category.
And so far, I mean, from his offseason, like, he's dropped a bunch of weight.
He dropped a bunch of weight last offseason.
So
as soon as we hit COVID, he put it back on. so it's like, I need consistent commitment to the craft. How about that?
All right. Fair enough. But yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of question marks that are still there. Right.
But if he becomes let's put it this way. If he becomes like a 28 to 32 home run guy this upcoming year, plus George Springer, plus already a decent lineup, that feels pretty good. Like, from an offensive standpoint, that feels good. That feels like a strong lineup.
Right? Like, absolutely. And I think you also have the issue as a Jays manager right now is, where do you play everybody? Right?
Yes.
It's not clear where everyone's going to fit into the lineup, which is not necessarily a bad thing, right? You have good pieces that you're going to want to play. So, it would be interesting to see if maybe they can package something for another pitcher. Because right, they definitely need that. Although, I mean, they got Hyun-Jin Ryu, so they've got an ace
who played well, who pitched well.
Absolutely. but it'd be nice if they could, add that sort of like, I mean, who knows, but if they could add Trevor Bauer in free agency, great. They could trade for somebody, even though, the trade market is sort of drying up a little bit too. That would be great as well. It's just a question of sort of how do you have these pieces. Can you get a couple more, one or two more, which you need, and then how do you put them together?
Yeah.
Right. But I feel like the potential for having a really good team is there. It exists. The potential to do some damage. I don't think they're going to win the division.
Probably not.
Right. I still think that the division is basically the Yankees to lose. I think that, but I do feel that they potentially, based on what's happened in the offseason, pip Tampa Bay to potentially the second best team in the division. Mm-hmm. I don't think the Red Sox are there yet. I mean, I could be wrong with that.
No, I think the Red Sox will suck. To be honest with you, I think they're in a position to not be great. I think the Jays are looking like a third place team, where if things fall well, they could be a second place team in that division.
Well, so you still put Tampa Bay ahead of them?
Yes, I do for the moment.
Okay.
I got to evaluate it more as we go along, but it's one of those things where, like, right now the Jays have a lot to prove to me and to a lot of other people because, like I said, on paper, even the Yankees thing, like the Yankees are loading up and doing all this stuff. It's like they got DJ LeMahieu back. They got him at a huge discount. That's great. They picked up all these other players. They picked up Corey Kluber. But I'm like, Corey Kluber was injured. They basically, Giancarlo Stanton is one bad look or twist away from getting done for the season. Aaron Judge is one twist away from being done for the season. Like, they've got a lot of 3/4 of their entire team could be injured by like the end of April. So it's like the Yankees could be injured right out of the whole thing. They might not matter. Right now, a lot of the attention is on them because of the moves they've made. And on paper, the moves are very interesting. But the question is, like, do they translate? Do enough of these people stay healthy long? Now, last year, they made a good run considering how many injuries they had. But that doesn't always work.
No, it's true.
That's a high leverage, high risk design of your team where, like, everything has to go right.
Yeah, and with the Yankees, it's not just, are you really, I mean, anybody can get injured anytime in any sport on any team. Yes.
But literally, I mean, their entire team is like, I'm waiting for it.
That's the thing, right? With the Yankees, you're like, it's not just one or two guys you're worried about. It's pretty much the whole team.
Yeah, like you're all injury prone. You're injury prone as a franchise. Like it's I've never seen anyone successfully pull off this stunt where it's like, so we're going to walk a tightrope with everyone on the team. You mean there's like no durable person on your team? Everyone is made out of glass? Apparently everyone is made out of glass.
It's a team of glass Joes.
I see what you did there. I see what you did there. But the thing is, like, it's a weird strategy. Could it work? Sure, but it's a very strange decision.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. So, like, okay, like, look, if it works, it works. But if it doesn't, it could be a disaster. Like, they could very easily be like not even in the discussion by the time we get to the end of the year.
But based on where things are on paper right now,
sure, yeah.
You still got to give the Yankees, again, on paper, the division. On
paper, I have no issue with that.
And then, I mean, we'll see. It's looking more and more like it's going to go back to 4 teams in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So we'll see what happens with that. But
the purists may not like it, but honestly, it's probably unwise. They probably should just be like, look, just make it 8 teams.
It's true.
There's a lot of like junk teams in the Major League Baseball. Like, just get over it. Just roll with it. Just do what you need to do, man. Like, come on now. Like, be serious. Be serious, bros. Be serious. That's all I'm saying. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yep.
Just saying, keep that in mind. Yeah. So, when Giancarlo Stanton is on the injured reserve and Aaron Judge is on the injured reserve and, Corey Kluber is on the injured reserve and they don't have a pitcher, and they have to call Ogues in from the bullpen. Like, they've run out of everyone. Everyone else is like drop dead or something. We'll see.
But yeah, it's definitely making the AL East sort of the division to watch, though.
That I do appreciate in many levels, that at least they have made it interesting. That part I do appreciate on many levels. And at least I'll be honest, last year I was really lukewarm on watching Jays games. This year I'm a little more inclined.
Yes, we shall watch the Dunedin Blue Jays this year.
That's okay. That at least I'm more inclined is the point that I'm trying to get across.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah. And then one other thing we'll talk about here briefly is let's talk about the Nolan Arenado potential trade. Looks like he may be going to St. Louis.
It looks like it's pretty much a done deal. The last that I've heard about it, though, is that he may not waive his no trade. That he has to officially waive the no trade, and he hasn't officially done that yet.
Yeah, I think he should honestly. I think he and Colorado have run their course. I don't think he enjoys the way they've kind of jerked him around a little bit, and it's one of those things where St. Louis. Some people will always hate St. Louis for whatever reasons, but at least St. Louis is a traditional baseball town. It is they do appreciate their baseball, and if you can be a player over there, they will appreciate you. So it's one of those things where like his contract's signed, like the deal's done, the deal's in place. So it's just a matter of like, can you make a go of it over there in St. Louis? And I think if he can play up to his level for a full season, last year was a bit of an anomaly. We'll throw it out for a lot of players. But if he can get back to kind of even close to his standard season with Gold Glove caliber defense and all that, he's still in his prime. Mm-hmm. This is one of those things like, and they got him for a bucket of baseballs basically. So like, if Colorado was either dumb enough or willing to get rid of you enough to do it for a bucket of baseballs, I would take the hint and just accept the deal.
Yeah, right. As you said, like there's so many. St. Louis was a playoff team.
Yep.
Right. Great baseball tradition.
And they gave up almost nothing.
Yeah, and a great baseball town. You know what I mean? It's probably a better, based on the way the Rockies are going, a better place to be.
Yeah, like in all honesty, you probably are upgrading your likelihood of being able to play in the postseason and maybe making a run and seeing all kinds of things. Like right now, Colorado, I don't know what they got going for them. So it's we'll see. At least it's interesting seeing a player of that caliber moving.
Yeah.
But because it isn't a common occurrence, but it does happen from time to time, and it wasn't in free agency; it was in a deal. So I would if I was advising him, I'd be like, look, just take the deal, get yourself ready for the season, play well, and you will immediately like make them regret it because they traded you for virtually nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like seems like a good fit for me. Seems like a good fit for my potential investments.
Ooh.
#invest. That's all I'm saying. But anyway. So yeah, that at least that makes, again, I do enjoy when there's a couple of storylines, and this off season has been very devoid of like any interesting, like real tidbits to click on. Baseball really doesn't have this, the old hot stove league has been icy cold. The hot stove league is basically hanging around in my living room. It's cold, Dave! It's cold! Where's Joe Buck when I need him? It's cold! Is it loud? No, it's quiet and cold. Why? Because it's cold. No one wants to be there.
Okay, they don't have Fox doesn't have the Super Bowl, so we don't have to listen to him anymore this year.
Well, it doesn't matter. I'm not watching the Super Bowl. You may as well let him do it. Why not? Let him come in and do the "it's loud" and then walk off. Like,
should we that's a good segue there you got there.
Dude, I am a master.
So tell me this, okay, Carlos?
I will riddle you this. Go on.
All right, because as we know, the talk about how amazing Tom Brady is has been insufferable.
He's the GOAT. I don't know if you know that.
But here's the thing, right? Is there any justification you can make for him being the GOAT without referring to his 6 Super Bowls? Or having won 6 and been to 10, or now 10, possibly winning his 7th this year?
Well, he's racked up statistics, but then it falls under the Matthew Stafford category. So it's one of those things.
That's what I mean, right? Because if the thing is, like, I don't. This is my personal thing. Like, I don't like Tom Brady, right? And people will probably call me a hater, and maybe rightfully so.
Dave, I'm a well-noted hater. Like, join me. It's like we have meetings. We have meetings every Wednesday.
Are there free cookies?
Dude, bruh, we got this. We got this.
But it's like, oh, well, he's got all these championships, and it's like, fair enough.
It's a team sport, buddy. But there's 11 players on the field.
But it's like, yeah, it's a team sport, and there's so many other factors that have gone into winning the Super Bowls that he's done, right? It's not like is there a signature like Tom Brady won them this Super Bowl moment?
What usually people will point to is drives because for quarterbacks it's drives. Like John Elway prior to the Super Bowl, it was the drive where he went and beat a team. But the thing is, and I've always pushed back on this, I do understand when it comes to quarterbacks, you can tell the difference when you can make a decent quarterback work. Like see the 2000 Ravens. You know, Trent Dilfer is a Super Bowl champion on the back of. But it's not like he was a garbage quarterback. He wasn't a great quarterback, but he played for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the day when playing for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was bad, real bad. So, like, it's not like Trent Dilfer had no talent. It's just that When he got on the Ravens, he's like, Trent, your job here is to manage. I can do that. His job is just to make the throw when he needs to make the throw. He didn't have to make a lot of throws because the defense was so prolific. His job was, don't screw this up, don't turn the ball over, and just keep the offense chugging. We can do that.
And,
Sounds good.
You score a couple touchdowns, that's probably enough to win the game.
Correct.
Based on that defense that they had at the time.
Correct. Which, it's just understanding the composition of your team. And we could definitely have down the road, we'll have a more lengthy conversation. I would say, post Super Bowl, let's have a discussion on what makes a good football team, because one of the things that I enjoy is looking at the overall. When I do my hating,
it's not just offense, defense, and special teams.
John Madden's not completely wrong, but there's a couple of missing elements in between that he's leaving out a little bit. But the point is that the way the components work with each other, the symbiotic relationship between these disparate components, seemingly disparate components, is actually critical. If the offense can't stay on the field enough, then even the greatest defense will wear down and get tired, and they will suddenly get exposed. Oh, but I thought this defense was good. They are. But if the offense is consistently 3 and out, then they have to spend all their time on the field. They will get worn down anyway. It doesn't matter. If you're exerting maximum effort, you're going to run out of gas. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, I think it was General Patton who said, like, fatigue makes cowards of us all. I think that was the quote, something like that. Or it might have been somebody else, but I remember fatigue makes cowards of us all. You can look that one up. But the point is, it's true. If you get tired enough, it doesn't matter how badly you want. You don't have the gas in the tank. You can't do it. The same play you could have executed in the first quarter, suddenly by the fourth quarter, you run out of gas. And the thing that's
was Patton.
Yeah, perfect. So it's good that I remember that one. But the point is that people didn't understand. And now, this year, I've enjoyed, the pundits, the Skip Bayless of the world going, oh, this proves that Bill Belichick wasn't. It's like, yeah, actually, no, it proves that Bill Belichick was. Because Tom Brady parachuted into a great offensive scenario for his capabilities.
But Carlos, he didn't get OTAs. He didn't get training camp the way it was normally done. And look what he's done.
Yeah, who gives a shit? Nobody. Okay. Most of the good players don't go to OTAs. Like, whatever. It's not like Bruce Arians was running a super complicated his offense was child's play compared to Bill Belichick's.
But I'm just right. I mean, that's the argument you're going to get against that, right?
Oh, totally.
Because I made that thing, right? And I may have gone off, not really, but I basically said someone was
They've got into fist fights with people.
Yeah, right. No, but the comment was made, it was on Facebook thing, and I didn't get into it with the guy afterwards because I'm like, I'm not going to argue with a stranger. Mm-hmm. But it was a buddy of mine, and he posted GOAT, right? No context, but I'm assuming that he meant Tom Brady. So my comment was,
he met Jameis Winston and you started arguing with him. What the hell, man?
So my comment was, system quarterback who, walked into a stacked team with a cakewalk schedule
and performed in a mediocre fashion through the playoffs. That playoffs is mediocre. And I will stand behind that. I can go game by game and I'll be like, I'll show you why this is trash.
No, I would agree with you. I would agree with you there. I'm not going to, the fact that, for example, in this one, look, circumstances are circumstances, and right, people are the victim of circumstances all the time. And in this case, the Tampa Bay have positively been the victim of circumstance, right? Do you need to take that or?
Yeah, just give me 1 second. Okay, editor's note. My booze is arriving. This is good news. The man who had only one job may have finally done the one job.
Nice.
So now I will continue from where we left off in this pertinent conversation. I believe one of us was yelling about this. Which one was yelling?
I think I was saying, right?
Please continue yelling.
Right? Like any team can be the victim of circumstance, right?
Yes.
And in this case, Tampa Bay has been the positive victim of circumstance. But here's the thing, right? Like Tom Brady threw 3 interceptions to Green Bay and they didn't do anything with that.
And it would have been 4 because they actually threw an air ball that could have very easily been caught for a 4th.
Right. You know what I mean? But so the fact that the Green Bay offense could not score against the Tampa Bay defense, Tom Brady had nothing to do with that.
Yep.
Absolutely nothing.
And that's after a mediocre performance against the Saints.
But he gets all the credit for that.
Yeah, but that's been my point here is that I'm not discounting the quarterback, because a truly great quarterback can bail you out of certain situations in some circumstances. They can extend the play, move around. They can throw an absolute bullet to a receiver who has a window this big and absolutely hit this tight window. Tom Brady's not that guy. He's never been that guy. Tom Brady, in all honesty, let's remove my hater glasses for just a second here. If I evaluate Tom Brady, here's what Tom Brady is, and I've said this previously. Tom Brady has maximized his feeble abilities to the absolute maximum, squeezed every last drop out of it, probably with HGH, but has squeezed every last drop out of his feeble abilities to always be at least as prepared as he possibly can be. So he never gets cheated on preparation. He never gets cheated on being as physically ready as he possibly can be. And he never gets cheated on maximizing what he can do.
Just gets cheated on deflating the balls.
That's different. That's different. He cheats. He doesn't get cheated. He cheats. That's different. But the point is that when it comes to games like that, it exposes his lack of ability. Because what happens is, I watched the playoff games leading up to it. He made some missed throws that his absolute quality receivers compensated for. They compensated in midair. They shifted their body and converted into a pretzel to make a catch that actually was a bad throw. Every quarterback makes bad throws, but Tom Brady doesn't have the arm strength to compensate for that. He can't extend the play. He's a statue. He can't really move around that much. He can't do that, but his line is solid. So they give him time to throw. He can release the ball quickly. Excellent. The receivers are open. If the receivers are open and you don't get hit, you have time to throw. All those things work together. The line in front of you in New England, for him, he had a great line for years, which meant that Tom Brady, the statue, didn't have to run around and try to find a way to extend the play and do some stuff and put into these weird, awkward angles where he has to throw across his body and do some crazy stuff. He doesn't need to do that because his pocket was protected. That doesn't mean permanently forever. Of course, he gets hit like every other quarterback does. But number one, the NFL has skewed the rules in favor of the offense to protect the quarterback, which has been beneficial for him. Outside of that 1 year, he has avoided injury for the large part. So he's got longevity, which has allowed him to build up statistical.
Well, more longevity than anybody, basically.
Correct. Yeah, so that's been super helpful. Has he stayed at a high quality level of play? Yes. But for all the years that, some of the pundits lament his lack of offensive weapons, I'm like, they still get open. His junk receivers still get open. They're professionals. They find a way to get open. They find a way to catch the ball. I watch all world level receivers drop the ball, and Tampa Bay doesn't have average receivers. They've got exceptional receivers who were already great without him. And some of them actually had their stats drop under Tom Brady. Like the offense was worse under Tom Brady than it was under Jameis Winston. Now, Jameis Winston threw 30 interceptions. That negates a lot of the good. They were 7-9 because he threw 30 interceptions. If he doesn't throw 30 interceptions, they make the playoffs last year. Jameis Winston. And then who knows what happens? Their offense was prolific. Their offense was good. Their offense was technically worse than this year in terms of talent.
And the defense is relatively close to being the same.
Correct. So it sounds to me like if Jameis Winston had been a little bit better in terms of decision making or had LASIK, I don't know. I'm not saying I'll take him at his word, but let's say he actually couldn't see. He threw 30 touchdowns and 5,000 yards, not being able to see with incredible offensive talent. Tom Brady, the decrepit old man, rolls in with his walker, and he throws for less yards, more touchdowns, but with an even more stacked offensive talent. Great. I'm not discounting that you did better, but I'm also like, that's my assumption. When we got to the playoffs, I'm not impressed. I watched you scrape by against a Washington team that was decimated, that scraped by out of the worst division in the sport. I watched you barely beat a Saints team whose quarterback retired pregame and still went out on the field for some reason. I watched you barely scrape by to beat that. I watched you play against a Packers team who psychologically does not understand how to get over the hump and make adjustments that they need to make and makes bad decisions and didn't capitalize on opportunities, and you still barely won. It wasn't because of you. You tried to throw the game away in the second half. You tried really hard to throw the game away in the second half. And you almost succeeded if they had been able to capitalize one time. I'm not convinced they would have won that game if the Packers had converted a couple of those interceptions into points. or converted some of their red zone opportunities that were field goals into touchdowns. I'm not convinced Tampa Bay could have come back from behind. They needed to be ahead. And when they were ahead, great. But if they had been behind, good luck with that.
Yeah. So now I imagine we'll talk about this. Do you want to save any kind of talk of the Super Bowl till next podcast, or do you want to?
Well, by the next podcast, the Super Bowl will be like in hours.
Well, we do. Yeah, the next day.
It'll be a matter of how quickly we can get it up. Look, here's the thing with the Super Bowl. I think Tampa Bay has as good a shot as any. I expect Kansas City to win. I'm betting on Tampa Bay because their odds are good. I'm thinking of it from the gambling perspective, so I'm
Have
doing
you
the
ever
double
thought
head.
that maybe it's just somehow they just want Carlos to win, so therefore that's why Tampa Bay is winning, because
This is literally the year. This is the one time they've decided they're just going to let me run the table.
Yeah.
Carlos is going to be right every single time here, all the way through.
So far, Carlos, you have been right.
Yeah.
You have been right.
Yeah.
And you don't want Tampa Bay to win. You don't want them to win. But they keep winning, and you keep betting on them. So I don't know, Carlos. I feel you may be slightly responsible.
Sure. Yeah. It's not your trash team screwing up the better matchup that I told you guys.
Yeah.
Because I knew the Packers were a bad matchup for them. That's why I wasn't surprised when they got down by 18.
But again, Carlos, it's hard to compete if your quarterback retires pregame and then still plays.
But you almost did. Despite your best efforts, you almost still competed.
No,
That's what makes it funny.
I don't know. It's if four turnovers, kind of does that kind of stuff. Because unlike Green Bay, now give them credit for that. Tampa Bay was able to capitalize on the turnovers.
Correct. That's the thing. It's that kind of makes the whole thing interesting. Is that I was serious when I said New Orleans was a better matchup personnel wise to make Tampa Bay uncomfortable.
Yes, I agree.
For me, that was the best opportunity. I didn't think the Packers would present the challenge. In fairness, they were more competitive than they were when they got lambasted in the regular season. They lost 38-10 in the regular season. They played a hell of a lot better. It still wasn't enough because they don't. At this point, Green Bay has a psychological hurdle that they're struggling to get past. They're struggling, and they've never been particularly good at it. And this goes back to the Favre era. They would get these opportunities. They consistently fielded good teams that could get to the NFC Championship. And most of the times they lose. So it's one of those things like when it comes to the NFC Championship, Favre was in 4 of them, got to 2 Super Bowls, but that means they were 2-2 in the NFC Championship. 500. But they had opportunities. They had 4 opportunities. And the Packers under Rodgers are 1-4. 5 tries at it. 9 tries overall, 5 tries, and they have failed to get to the Super Bowl a grand total of 6 times. So 6 opportunities that they missed to get to the Super Bowl. Imagine if they had gotten to 6 more Super Bowls during that run. That would have been an incredible run with 2 quarterbacks.
Then who's the GOAT now? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's one of those things you'll never know. Because these opportunities don't grow on trees. It's one of those things. And Rodgers didn't start being a full-time quarterback until I think his mid-20s. Because his first 3 years he was the backup to Favre, basically. So it's like he basically missed the first chunk of his career, basically under Favre before getting a chance to take over. And then once he did take over, and he got hurt in the first season when he came in. So it's one of those things where stuff happens. But then after that, 5 NFC championships in about 12 years. That's pretty good.
That is pretty damn good.
Yeah. So it's one of those things. And he never had a Bill Belichick. It was Mike McCarthy. Go ask Dallas what they think of Mike McCarthy. You're getting a chance to see how the other half lives. They weren't that. Bill Belichick will never get the credit I think he deserves because he basically whipped together this season with duct tape and, chewed bubble gum. And then just threw in Cam Newton. He goes, it's not really what I want, but sure, I'll put him in there. Yeah, we'll make do. And even then, they weren't awful. They just weren't good.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. I would like to see what happens if he does decide to try to do a full rebuild. That'll be, I think, more indicative. Tom Brady walked into an already made situation. Any good quarterback would have done well with that Tampa team. Look, I don't think Tom Brady helped him that much.
Let's put it this way. I honestly feel like this needs to be noted. Neither of us is saying that Tom Brady's shite.
Oh, I kind of am sometimes.
Well, okay,
I would say this playoff run, he's kind of shite.
Fair enough. But I mean, it's not like the guy has some skill, right? Obviously, right? I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but You know what I mean? I just think the argument for GOAT being basically, now he's got numbers, right? In some cases. And part of that is, longevity, right? Part of that is skill. But to say that, while he's been to the most Super Bowls and won the most Super Bowls, therefore he's the best, when that's not solely an individual thing, I think as you said, we can talk about it later, but I feel that's oversimplifying things and not really, you're not really doing a deep dive into it. You're looking at one stat and going, boom. Right. Well, championships. Okay. Therefore, Tom Brady's the greatest ever. And, and hold on. Sorry. This is the one thing. Anybody, sorry, Carlos, but anybody who makes the argument now that Tom Brady, because of this game, why is he great? Because he's won a bunch of championships, right? No one's making an argument any other reason. But then this is the thing that's getting me now. Tom Brady is the greatest athlete to ever play in any sport ever. What the fuck is that, Carlos? What the fuck is that? What? Tom Brady is so you're telling me that Tom Brady is a greater athlete than Michael Jordan?
Tom Brady's not a greater athlete than me. Get out of here.
Here's my thing, man. That is being made. It's right. There are people, that get paid a lot more than we do to do what we're doing. Right?
Everyone gets paid to what they're doing when we get paid.
I know. I know.
Hashtag sponsors.
See, I just let us into the sponsor us moment. But the point is, right? They're like, oh, Tom Brady's the greatest athlete to ever play in any sport. And I'm like, seriously? Like, give your head a shake. Like I feel like you can make, here's the thing. People can make a semi-decent argument that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback of all time. I will hear that argument.
As a quarterback, I think I'm comfortable with that. You can make the case. You can make the case.
Right? I don't happen to agree with that, but you can make the case. You cannot make the case that he is the greatest athlete in any sport. Bullshit.
I don't think he's in the top 1,000 athletes in the NFL alone. We're talking about athletic talent. Athletic talent is more than your ability to throw the football with reasonable accuracy. He's not the most accurate quarterback of all time. He's a very accurate quarterback, fairly accurate. He is a very consistent thrower of the football. He can make the throws. He is a very intelligent athlete. He makes good decisions on the whole. That part I'm not going to argue with you. He doesn't have the strongest arm. He can't run for crap. He doesn't have any deceptive ability in terms of getting away from a tackle. He's actually kind of garbage, aside from the fact that he knows what he's doing and he maximizes his ability. If we're talking about athletic talent, he's basically average, athletically.
There's a reason you sometimes refer to him as Tom Average.
Yeah, but athletically, he is average. Run any metric you want. Let's go to the combine. Do you want to go back to the tapes? He couldn't run for shit.
But
that
Carlos,
was when he was in his 20s.
He's playing at, 43?
He's like 143. It doesn't matter.
Okay. He's still playing, Carlos. Therefore, he's the greatest athlete ever. TB12.
Yeah, exactly. TB12, also known as injection to the arm. But anyway, the point is that Barry Bonds is getting slighted for this. I feel like Barry Bonds should have been like, I should just call it TB12, and then everyone would give me a break. God damn it.
Was he 25? BB 25?
Yeah, maybe something like that. He should have just called it that. That would have been fine. Secretly behind the scenes, you'll know Alex Guerrero probably worked with Barry Bonds. Just saying. But anyway, just throwing it out there. Hashtag conspiracy theory. But anyway, the point is, I wanted to make sure Dave had his soapbox segment. We got that properly labeled. I
appreciate it.
But the thing is, I don't care if people consider him the greatest quarterback of all time. The greatest athlete is a joke to me. That's not even a discussion. There were great athletes if we stick to the NFL alone. Deion Sanders was an all-star in 2 sports. Bo Jackson was an all-star in 2 sports. Tom Brady's not even a discussion. He's not a great athlete. He is a person who plays an athletic sport. He is in a position that allows him to be less athletic. The quarterback is only mildly more athletic than a kicker. I'm sorry. There's a hot take for you. The quarterback is barely more athletic most of the time than a kicker, except for the quarterbacks who can actually move, who actually have to be able to be athletic. Steve Young in his day was shocking because he ran the ball. Tom Brady's not running the ball. The only thing Tom Brady does really well is a quarterback sneak. It's 1 yard. It's over the top. And that's because the line is very large. They've got some very large individuals in front of him whose job it is to give him the space to be able to go over the top. He's very good at that. You want to say he's the GOAT of the quarterback sneak? Done. I'll give it to you right now. I will concede that without a problem.
But here's the other thing that I think will be a very interesting narrative from the Super Bowl, especially if Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs win. right, is, oh, now he's better than Brady's pace. And, he's got all these stats. And, so, I mean, obviously a lot goes down to
You know what
how
the thing
many
is, though?
Super
He's
Bowls
not better
can,
than Brady's pace.
that's not for Super Bowls at this age.
I don't think so. Let me
I
confirm.
thought,
But
I thought I heard that he was. So
I will double check the
I,
numbers on that. But he had 3 Super Bowls pretty early. I'll check what age he was when he had 2. I'll confirm that right now.
I will be willing to admit that I may be wrong on this. But in terms of like a lot of the numbers, he's on pace to beat them. I would tell you that's for sure.
He already has an MVP. Like that part, like a regular season.
But you know
MVP.
what I mean. So it's like that's the narrative with the GOAT, and people argue about it for all time, right? Because are we watching the future GOAT defeat the current GOAT? No, because young GOAT King still will have something to say about that. But
yeah,
hashtag justice
Tom
for young
Brady.
GOAT King.
So Tom Brady had his 3rd ring. So his 2nd ring, he was 26, and his 3rd ring by 27. So 2nd ring by 26, 3rd ring by 27. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So 26 and 27. So I will grab Patrick Mahomes here. I will pull this up. Good old profootballreference.com is.
I love it.
You should look up your
See,
stuff.
we will give shout outs to you. Why won't you give shout outs to us, people?
I know, right? Okay, here we go. Go scrolling down. Just trying to check the ages and stuff. So here's the thing. Patrick Mahomes right now, as we speak, is currently the age of 25. So theoretically, he could win his 2nd Super Bowl by 25. So, yes, he would be ahead of his pace. That is correct. I thought Tom Brady was a little younger when he started it, but nope, fair enough. He would be ahead of his pace. And he'd be ahead of his pace by a year, with the possibility of being ahead by 2 years if he's able to then come back next year.
So we shall see.
Yeah. Although in terms of offensive statistics, like just look at it this way. From age 23 on, 5,000 yards in his first full season as a quarterback and 50 touchdowns. 4,000 yards in kind of an injury season where he missed 2 games. 26 touchdowns, which, an off season for him. And then 4,700 yards this year with 38 touchdowns. He's got 114 touchdowns and 14,000 yards, and he's 25. That'll do.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe to the point. Oh, by the way, his 50 touchdown season, he also threw 12 interceptions. This past year, he threw 6. So his accuracy is improving. Just so we're clear. He's technically getting better. He hasn't peaked yet. Just saying. But the point is, what I'll say is this. In terms of offensive talent, and what's going to happen is as time goes on, Patrick Mahomes will get the system quarterback if they continue to have success. Let's say they win the Super Bowl. Again, let's say what if they win the Super Bowl and they have some more success the next couple of years. He'll be seen as a system quarterback because Andy Reid built the system and had some success with what's his name? Playing for Washington and was comeback player of the year basically this year.
Alex Smith.
Thank you, Alex Smith. He had some success and got to the playoffs with Alex Smith, which he did. Very true. Mm-hmm. But we're not penalizing New England. We're not penalizing Tom Brady because in New England, Drew Bledsoe was a decent quarterback. Like, he got hurt. That's the reason why Tom Brady got an opportunity in the first place. And for his first couple of years, he was a game manager. Patrick Mahomes is actually an offensive talent. Now, does he have more offensive talent around him? Yes. Tom Brady also has more offensive talent around him. So it's like the old guy with offensive talent versus the young guy with offensive talent. Well, Patrick Mahomes makes more throws, more impressive throws, better throws, longer throws, more consistent throws off weird angles that Tom Brady couldn't make at any point in his life.
True. That very few quarterbacks can make some of the throws that Patrick Mahomes
The only guy that I've seen make throws like that is Aaron Rodgers, who will now always be slated as a secondary candidate because he couldn't get it done this time. But again, I look at his career and I go, how unfortunate that he lost a decade of his career to Mike McCarthy.
And lack of defense.
Yeah, truly garbage defense. He's basically Dan Marino with a ring.
Yeah.
Like, he actually has one, so he can be like, well, at least I got the one.
It's true.
And I've had opportunities, but it's like
I mean, you could even look at the same way to Drew Brees in a similar fashion, right? That the Saints have had, an extreme amount of prolific offenses and offensive records and amazing offensive players. And for the majority of the Sean Payton era, they've had an absolutely garbage defense.
Yeah,
right?
I suppose.
So,
Yeah.
but Tom Brady has lucked out in the fact that, New England's always had a solid defense when he was there.
They've
for
had
the
a top
most
10
part,
defense. They've had the top 10 defense for most of his career.
right? And the Tampa Bay defense they have right now is also stellar.
Yeah. So I think it's one of those things where I think maybe to put a button on this conversation, really
Right.
what it comes down to is that I think people give quarterback a lot of credit, which I understand. It is the glamour position. They can make some big plays. And those are the highlight reel plays that you see, things like that. But the thing that's forgotten all the time is that there's a lot of these great quarterbacks throughout history who have had this incredible talent. But then you go look and see that it's undone by mediocre defenses. And maybe the best example, I'll use a Tom Brady example for you. His greatest performance in a Super Bowl was losing to the Eagles and Nick Foles, backup Nick Foles. He threw for 500 yards.
Backup Nick Foles.
Correct. But but Brady threw for 500 yards in that Super Bowl, and it didn't matter. They lost comfortably. Why? Because the offensive talent that they were putting on display. Now, people go like, "Oh, but he 500 yards. This is the Skip Bayless special here." But he threw for 500 yards. It's like, well, it didn't mean crap. They lost comfortably. They didn't lose by a little. They lost. That was a double-digit loss. Like, it wasn't close. It was the opposite of a Tom Brady Super Bowl win. Like, it wasn't close. They actually were very comfortably controlling that game for most of it because the Eagles were a better team, top to bottom. Brady was able to get his numbers, but a lot of it came late because he was kind of garbage for a good chunk of that game. And like, he was fine, but it's one of those things, like, it clearly didn't matter. So then we're back to the original concept here. If he is so great that he transcends the sport and somehow breaks all the rules that apply to everybody else, how come in his greatest offensive output in a Super Bowl, they lost comfortably? And his most mediocre Super Bowl appearance, they won against the Rams. Because the Rams were terrible.
It just proves more that we were right to boycott that Super Bowl.
Well, the problem is now I got to boycott another one because I honestly don't want to watch this game. I really don't.
I don't really, but I think Megan actually wants to watch this game more than I do. Ooh. So I feel that I will be watching at least part of it.
Well, report back your findings. I'm not watching that shit.
That's fair. So, Carlos, may I ask you some questions?
You may.
So here's my thing, okay? So I have started watching. I've gone down that rabbit hole. Now you
wait. Before you ask me questions, there was something I wanted you to ask me.
NBA Topshot.
Okay, I'm going to make sure I get the right verbiage. I want to get the name right because I need a moment here to converse on this with you. I think you'll enjoy it. I
always enjoy my NBA, so.
It is Topshot. I want to make sure I get this right. Okay. So let's. I'm not going to go into a full length explanation. I'll give you the short version. This is the Cole's Notes version. Then we need to talk about it for a minute. But it fills my heart with gladness and glee, and I have to talk about it. Okay. So when I say to you blockchain, do you know what that is?
No.
Blockchain is basically the underpinning technology that Bitcoin is based off, Litecoin, different cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies is a component of it. Blockchain is the general premise.
Gotcha.
The simple way to break down what blockchain is that it's a ledger. It's an electronic ledger that allows you to maintain transactions. It's what, like I said, powers the concept of Bitcoin, Litecoin, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ethereum, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. So our friends at the NBA, they've developed what's called NBA Topshot. And NBA Topshot it's not a cryptocurrency. Let's get this right. It's not. What it is it creates these non-fungible tokens, NFT, non-fungible tokens. And if anybody wants to Google that, they can Google what it is. But basically I'll give you a concept. I'll wrap it up this way because this might be an analogy I'll use later on, but I'll workshop it here a little bit. If you go and buy Bitcoin, you know what you're buying. You buy a Bitcoin, it costs this much. You can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, blah, 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 et cetera, et cetera. Great. Each Bitcoin is worth the same amount. If you buy one Bitcoin and then trade it with somebody for one Bitcoin and you trade a Bitcoin to each other, the Bitcoins are worth the same. When you're making that trade, they're valued the same. And when you get it, it's worth what it's worth. And when the other person gets theirs, it's worth what it's worth. You're just exchanging the same thing. If you trade other currencies, it could be different values, whatever. Imagine you were able to open a pack of cryptocurrency. I'm just starting with this analogy and I'll bring it back to what we're talking about.
Okay.
So imagine you were able to open a pack of cryptocurrencies and you could pull Dogecoin, which is basically a joke, and Ripple, which is basically a joke. Or you were able to put Litecoin, which is okay, Ethereum, which is okay, and Bitcoin. You could pull them all out of the same pack.
Okay.
But they're worth different amounts. Like one Bitcoin is worth like $40,000 Canadian as we record this.
Yeah.
One Litecoin is worth about $170 Canadian, et cetera, et cetera. So
Gotcha.
And
Okay.
Ethereum is like 1,700. I'm just giving you the different levels. So you could open a pack and get a Bitcoin. $40,000. I'm rich. You could get $170. Okay, I did okay. Or you could get, Dogecoin, and maybe it's like $1 or $2. I don't know what Dogecoin is worth, but I'm just giving you examples.
I get it.
Okay, cool. Enter NBA Topshot. So the trading card boom is in effect. There's a lot of trading cards. NBA Topshot is a blockchain-based technology concept that uses non-fungible tokens. That's why I gave you all the lead in. I gave you the background first. It allows people to open virtual packs that allow you to have NBA highlights that could be at different rarities and things. And what's happened is they've got a marketplace and everything with it. And because technically you could pull, that's why I use that Dogecoin, Litecoin, Bitcoin analogy where you can open a pack and you don't know which one you're getting. It could be these different things because they're all different values. So you could pull. So what technically you're getting is a blockchain enabled code that has an NBA highlight in it. So you can get a Steph Curry 3-pointer highlight clip, or you could get a LeBron James monster dunk 3-pointer clip, or you could get the insert NBA scrub clip of him dribbling or something. Like I'm just using an extreme example. Different values, obviously, depending on what it is. Mm-hmm. Now this thing has taken off in the last little while, over to the point that in a LeBron James highlight sold for $71,455. Now, just so we're clear, I wanted to give you all the underpinnings first. I needed to explain the underpinnings first.
Yeah, of course.
But I want you to understand that, in effect, what this is a blockchain associated, because the blockchain thing makes each one unique. Yep. They can be as different serial numbers. But in effect, what somebody did was pay $71,455 for a blockchain-enabled video clip you could have watched on YouTube for free. The clip is on NBA, on the NBA YouTube channel. You can watch it for free. But now you own a token of this clip for $71,455. I am amused, Dave.
That's ridiculous. So amused. I'm amused too, but oh my goodness, Carlos.
This is the world we live in, Dave. The world where Tom Brady will win his 7th Super Bowl. The world where LeBron James highlight clips will sell for $71,455. Goddamn, son. Goddamn.
I don't even know what to say, Carlos.
I do. Yes. It's always here to save us. It's always here.
Dear God, why?
It's always here.
All right. So, Carlos, that was very amusing. Thank you for bringing that up.
I needed to. I felt that I would be doing a disservice to you and to everyone else listening. The 5 of you that probably exist. But those of you that
that you needed to do that favor.
I needed to make sure you understood about the burgeoning economy of NBA Topshot. And I look forward to Dave buying his packs of NBA Topshots coming soon.
Yeah, no, not happening. How much, for the record though, how much is a pack?
Okay. I was trying to look this up myself. There are different packs. Okay, so one second. NBA Topshot. I want to see, because there's a website, right? Okay, 1 second here. I'll quickly pull it up. All right, it's NBATopshot.com. All right, let's do this real quick here. Share the screen, NBATopshot.com. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to see if I can click on this. Apparently I can't click on it. Huh, it's kind of weird. Okay, let me see here. All right, let me refresh this because apparently I can't click on it. Work better if the website worked. Seriously? All right, so the first part is you have to make the website work. No, like I legit can't click on it. That's actually very funny. Like I can click on this.
Amazing.
Okay, like literally, does the site not work?
So Carlos is dealing
with... Okay, hold on. I was able to finally click on something. I think I figured out what the problem is. This website is actually borked. Okay, there we go. I got it. Okay, we did it. We did it, you guys. All right. For some reason, it actually would like get fixated on that one piece. Okay, so example. So what happens is so all these are sold out. Like it's hard to actually get a pack to open. But let's say you did. So they got this Cool Cats drop 1. So we're using a lot of shoe parlayings and stuff like that. Drops. Yeah. Merch drops. Base set. So $9 USD for these packs. And then there's the Cool Cats pack, which is $14 USD. So like $9 to $14. But if you get really lucky, you could pull a pack that could have a highlight clip if you get something like a LeBron. By the way, some regular clips sell for hundreds of dollars. Other ones sell for thousands of dollars. And there might have been, I haven't confirmed this yet, that article from Forbes that I was talking through when I gave you that number, that's old now. There might have been $100,000 Top Shot clip sold. Yes, Dave!
Oh my goodness.
It is the future! We're selling video clips that are available for free! Yes!
That's an insane amount of money. So, speaking of insane things, Carlos.
Please go on.
So I have gone down the rabbit hole, which I should have gone down earlier. But
and I did mention this.
You did. I've started watching Dark Side of the Ring, which is, for the record, I feel Vice Media they do a lot of good work, both in the news department and in the the content. Anyway, so they have a show called Dark Side of the Ring, and it basically features stories from wrestling that are. Some are, a little bit everything. Some are just unfortunate. Some are extremely morbid. Some are just violent, and others are just straight up unnecessary. But it's an interesting show. It is about 44 minutes if you watch it with no commercials.
To get it right, though, it is a documentary series.
Yes, it is
These
a
are
documentary
different seasons
series.
of documentary series.
Yes. And it's so I have so many questions about so many things from watching this. And in like no particular order, so here's the thing, right? Like I kind of like professional wrestling.
Okay.
Right? Like I liked it when I was younger.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I still appreciate as somebody who, teaches drama and appreciates theater.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the performance aspect to it, and I always have.
Okay.
Right? Which I enjoy. But it's like there's certain elements of this am I allowed to like it? And should I like it? Is Jim Ross actually a good guy? Because sometimes he seems like a good guy, and but he's been associated with so much shady BS, Vince McMahon BS, right? Like how, like you said when I texted you and I said I've gone down the rabbit hole, and your response to me was, first of all, give me a thumbs up for finally watching the show, and second of all, you're like it really is amazing after watching it all. Like how is this business allowed to continue to operate? It is true. Like my thing is, first of all, the one that was like New Jack, right?
1 second. I need a moment. New Jack, yes.
Like that is
put it directly into my veins. Yes,
that is disturbing. Like the whole episode is just like it's just like hardcore. Like literally, this has been ECW at the time was literally like a license to commit assault.
Yes, go on.
Right? Like obviously in certain sports, and it's not just like professional wrestling, which is different than actual wrestling, right? Where like there's an amount of violence that happens, right? Like in football, you get tackled, hockey, you get body checked, and all of those things feature elements which are within the rules of the game, right? You can get rocked by a body check or a tackle in football that is completely legal and not dirty.
Yep.
Right. But like literally this man's career, like how is it? Like, I mean, he did wind up in jail, but I don't know how he's still not in jail from all the things that happened. Right. And I'm just like, I will never be able to look, even though obviously it's somewhat different in WWE or whatever, but I will never be able to look at a hardcore match the same way after watching that episode. Like the things he did to people, is truly, truly disturbing, Carlos.
So I appreciate on many levels that you started with New Jack.
I didn't start with, well, I mean,
no, but the joy, literally, I'm like, mainline it to my veins. This is what I needed.
Now, question before you get into, did you, in any of the episodes of them, is there anyone that you watched where you were not aware of the story beforehand?
Well, no, I would say, did you watch the Owen Hart one?
Yes.
Okay. I was aware of most of the information there, but I think there were definitely some insights. I would say the Owen Hart one, I probably got as much out of it as anybody. I haven't watched the Bruiser Brody one, but I am familiar with his story somewhat. I would say
that is also super messed up.
It is, yeah, totally.
Carlos, can I say the most crazy part about this?
But before you get to the New Jack one, because there's a lot of crazy shit in that one too.
The Bruiser one, because I watched that today.
Go ahead.
Literally, so obviously it's about a murder of a wrestler in Puerto Rico. Mm-hmm. The guy who allegedly murdered him, I have to use allegedly because he was found not guilty in a court of law in Puerto Rico, does children's birthday parties.
Obviously.
Like, he literally has a Facebook page. That's what he does. He does children's birthday parties.
Puerto Rico, my friend. Puerto Rico.
But yeah, man, like some of the stuff from the New Jack, I just can't get it out of my head. And I really want to, Carlos. I really, really, really want to.
Dave. Poor impressionable Dave. Yeah, no, New Jack's fucked up. Like there's I can't sugarcoat it. I can't talk it away. No, that Paul Heyman made a decision when he let New Jack roam the streets of ECW back in the day. But New Jack is what you would call living the gimmick. Like he lives the gimmick. Like he plays a gangster kind of guy who will not take anything, and if you cross him in any way, he'll try to kill you. He takes it very seriously. If memory serves me, I could be mistaken. I believe in the New Jack episode, they talked about the mass transit incident where he basically tried to kill that one guy who was like not really a wrestler, and he just came in and
he was a 17-year-old kid.
Yeah, he basically tried to bludgeon him and whatnot. And ECW ran that line all the time, but New Jack was a different discussion entirely. I even remember New Jack was still there when they went to TNN, and they were on a network, even though it wasn't like hugely covered. But they were leading to Roller Jam, and you'd have clips of New Jack coming in, and like his shtick is that he would come out, his theme song would be playing, and he would go in, and it would be a hardcore match, of course, and he would bring in all kinds of plunder and basically hit his opponent with like everything he's got, and the music would never start playing. It wasn't really a match. It was sort of a match, but it'd be like him bludgeoning his opponent in a bunch of different ways, and then maybe there'd be a pin, or maybe not, or maybe he would be thrown out, and that was basically New Jack, and then he'd leave and roll into the next town and do the same thing again.
Yeah, like it's just, you know what I mean? Like that, for watching that episode made me think, if anybody could ever question, like, how was it possible for, citizens of Rome to go watch people get fed to the lions, right? That is the element of humanity that episode speaks to.
You mean everybody?
No, not everybody. A lot of people.
Okay, fair enough. You're right, not everybody. 97.5%. But anyway, the point is that no, there was always that aspect of it. And the thing is, it appealed to a demographic. Like when Paul Heyman put on that show, I'll give you the short version. When Paul Heyman put on that show, he understood what he was trying to appeal to counterculture. He was basically like, we're not WWE. Now, in fairness, here's the thing. WWE funded ECW the last couple of years. They lent them a lot of money to basically keep them in business.
Paul Heyman works for WWE.
Yeah. They've always had a relationship, especially towards the end. They had a relationship. Obviously, Paul Heyman. The thing you need to understand, the reason why I joke about the Carny thing, is that it's this one thing, like I hate you today, but I love you tomorrow. Or I love you today and I'll hate you tomorrow. Or then we'll do that and then we'll reverse course later. It's always like that. Literally always. At all times. It never stops. It never ends. Because Vince McMahon has made enemies of everybody. Like everybody. And then they'll do business with him because it's money. They'll do it for money. Everything is for money. New Jack was allowed to go out there because he was a draw, because people were like, what is this crazy bastard going to do this time? Nobody knew, including Paul Heyman. But you let it play out. And it was, he rode that line dangerously close, because I believe, if memory serves me, the parents of the 17-year-old kid sued. And at that time,
they charged him.
Yeah. And the thing is, that could have ended ECW right there. It didn't, but it could have. And professional wrestling has always had that kind of thing.
It probably should have.
Yeah. But like professional wrestling, and like that's ECW, but still, like I said, WWE helped fund it for a stretch of time. And Vince McMahon is not opposed or immune to this kind of thing. And then some of the other shows you can see, Vince McMahon's got his own shady shit. So he's not immune to it. He's not above it. But it's still a publicly traded company with a family-friendly atmosphere.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, there's nothing family friendly about New Jack.
Well, that's why New Jack never made WWE television, but yes.
Thankfully.
Here's the thing. There is I'll give you guys the reference, and you can go Google it yourself. You can go look up Public Enemy, who was a tag team who also participated in ECW. They were in WWE for a cup of coffee, literally a cup of coffee. Go look up Public Enemy versus the Acolytes. Go Google that shit. And it was on, I think, a Sunday Night Heat. It was one of the secondary shows. Apparently, Public Enemy had not ingratiated themselves to the locker room. Apparently, they came in like they were big stars, even though they were ECW guys and around different the indies and stuff like that. They were known for their hardcore style and all that stuff. Well, the Acolytes was John Bradshaw Layfield. That's kind of his gimmick name, but whatever, Bradshaw. And Farouk. And Farouk was Ron Simmons. Ron Simmons used to be a football player collegiately, and he became the first black WCW world champion. He has been around the wrestling business a long time. He's obviously, these guys are all retired now.
Part of Nation of Domination as well.
Correct. Yeah. Yep. There was a lot of that. And by the time he got to WWE, they didn't really use him the same way. Like he was a much more diminished version of the Ron Simmons who was out doing other things, but whatever. The point is Ron Simmons is a tough dude, like a real tough dude. Because he was a former football player and he was in his heyday, in his prime, especially even when he was at the Acolytes. Dude was jacked. So he could put a damage on somebody if he wanted to. And Bradshaw was kind of a long, lanky, old school brawler type guy. So he was a big dude as well, like a really big guy. He's like 6'5", 6'6". He's just a giant guy. So these guys are pretty tough. And they were buddies really, and they would hang out and drink beer and do different stuff around the road and whatever. But they were tough dudes. So what happened is Public Enemy didn't ingratiate themselves to the locker room, and for whatever reason they were put into a match with the Acolytes, Farouk and Bradshaw. And Farouk and Bradshaw decided to take it upon themselves to inflict old school wrestling justice upon them and take care of it. Which is to say, if you go watch the match, it's not much of a match. Even the commentators realized what was happening. They basically made references to it. Basically, Farouk and Bradshaw, or Ron Simmons and Bradshaw, basically kicked the shit out of Public Enemy. They hit him with everything they could, but they hit him full power in the head to like, I'm trying to maim you. So more often than this is New Jack had a wry smile on his face. He goes, that's how you do it. That was on WWE television. And the commentators were like, I don't think we're going to see the Public Enemy again. And I was like, that's an understatement. You literally never saw the Public Enemy again after that. They were done with the company after that. But they got their asses kicked on television. Literally got their asses kicked. That was the moment where it's like, so you think it's fake? Go watch that one.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it's supposedly choreographed, right? It is to a large degree.
Yeah.
But there's elements. Like, I mean, I remember the one episode, I think it was one of the Chris Benoit ones, where who is it? Chris Jericho that's doing the most of the interview.
Chris Jericho does a lot for the Chris Benoit episode. He was the voiceover guy.
Yeah,
and he did a lot of pieces of that one.
Yeah. So, but basically talking about how like they used to do, like the chair hits were real. Like you got hit in the face with a steel chair, and there wasn't anything fake about that, right?
The only thing you could do really was because Steve Austin did an interview where the radio person was asking like, "Well, is there anything you can do with the steel chair?" He goes, "Well, you can do some things to like mitigate, but like it's a chair. It's not a gimmick chair. It's a chair that somebody was sitting in 5 seconds ago. So it's like you can only do so much." You fold the chair to create less angles because if you have angle, so if you hit somebody with the edge of a chair, you can cut them open and like cause them to bleed and do all kinds of stuff. You can also hit them in the back and make it as flat as possible. Then at that point, it's basically physics. What are you doing? Yeah. It's like using anatomy and physics. You create this flat plane, which is helpful in and somebody who's better at science can explain this, but you're basically doing an impact. And you're doing an impact laid out over a distance. It's the same way that like Hollywood stunts are done. When a person lands, they don't land on their side. They try to land flat on their back as much as possible to shift the.
Well, there's way. I mean, the same thing in theater too, right? You fall, you learn to fall in a certain way, right, to mitigate any potential injury, right?
Yeah, and the thing is though, when you do it in theater, no one asks if the floor is fake. Because it isn't. Sure. It's a floor. But you're landing in a certain way, and the word I'm looking for is force. You basically want to shift the force to as much of your body as possible. So when somebody is a stunt person, when they fall, they try to land flat on their back. They try to hit their arms with the position as well. Basically, they're trying to divert as much of the force as possible through as much of their body as possible to decrease the amount. Because if you landed flat in one spot, well, you're going to do maximum damage. So that's basically what you're doing. When you're doing a chair shot, you're trying to move the force to as much surface area as possible. I was trying to get the right verbiage that I wanted. Surface area as possible to take the impact and spread it out as much as you can. That's all you can do. But at the end of the day, if I hit you with a freaking chair and I go full bore and I hit you over the head, you're going out. I joked about it because back in high school, our good friend Chanel DeMel, back in the day, he had the correct name. He had the excellent name. We were doing a.
This is the this serving tray skit.
Oh yeah. I drilled him with the serving tray. So I drilled him with it. And they were shocked that I went full power on it. It's like, well, I didn't go 100% full power on it, but I gave him a pretty good shot with it. But it's a serving tray. It's a piece of plastic. So it's like, whatever. I figure, you'll live. You're young. You'll heal.
It's also not a steel chair.
Correct. But if I went full bore with a steel chair, like.
You could kill somebody, potentially.
Yeah. When I used to play baseball, I could swing the bat pretty hard to the point that even though I played flat-footed, I could hit the ball further than most of the other kids. So if I take a steel chair and I apply the same kind of pressure, I can basically take your head off. But somebody that size who can do that, they can apply ridiculous damage. Ridiculous. So you're not playing. The bottom line is you're not playing like with that. So that's why over the years, if anybody is paying attention, the steel chair shot to the head is not a thing anymore. They don't do it anymore. That's not an accident. That's not a coincidence. They're like, concussions are a real thing. Oh yeah.
Well, and I mean CTE is a real thing too.
Correct. So that's why they don't do that anymore, because the risk for it's not. And let's be clear about this though. WWE doesn't actually give a shit about their performers. If they died, they don't care. But
I think that's been proven. I mean, Owen Hart died in the ring
over time,
right from falling from the ceiling.
Yeah, because of a dumb stunt. Because of a dumb stunt that meant nothing.
Because of a dumb stunt that was done to try and save a buck and wasn't done safely.
Correct.
And then they continued the show.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like they don't give a shit about any of these performers. They don't care.
Right? Like. But here's.
I've told you before that I did watch. That was 1999 Over the Edge. I saw that pay-per-view live. I told you that, right?
I think so.
Yeah, I saw that pay-per-view live. I remember it. Kemper Arena. I know.
I feel like I also like. So I'm trying to remember a lot of things because of like when I was watching wrestling and whatever. I honestly feel that might have been the time after that was when we sort of stopped watching wrestling, at least as much, was after that happened.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I kept watching wrestling for quite a long time. And the thing is, I still watch wrestling. I just don't watch WWE because I don't like... So let me say this quickly, and then we'll continue, because I think this is an interesting conversation. But let me quickly...
Because I do have a couple more questions for you.
No, by all means, absolutely. And I'm completely okay with that. But I want to make this caveat here.
Of course.
I think it's pertinent.
Yep.
I'm not going to claim any innocence in this because I watched Owen Hart. I watched that match. There's no footage of Owen Hart actually falling and dying, or if the footage exists, it never made air. I'll put it to you that way. It was there was a video package on at the time. So if you're watching the pay-per-view, you saw the video package. If you were in the arena, you saw the thing. It was there. You saw it. So that's different. But for the pay-per-view audience, at least what I saw over in Rogers in Canada back then in 1999, that none of that made air. All you got was a shot of the announcers kind of explaining the situation, and stuff was happening in the ring and then they spent time showing the crowd. They did not show the ring, which is wise. But I promise you the footage exists. WWE has extra cameras. They've got cameras that point at the ring at all times. And I promise you that's one of those ones. And the verbiage used was, do not show, do not reproduce, do not destroy. Something to that effect.
Yeah.
And it's sitting in the WWE vault, in the archive, in a dark corner where that footage exists. I promise you. It exists. Because for legal reasons, they can never destroy it. So, but that's the world that WWE lives in. It's this murky kind of underworld that Vince McMahon brought in and accepted. Wrestling has always had kind of that edge. Vince didn't take it away. The fact that it's a corporate company doesn't take it away. Now, key point. As a fan, I'm not claiming innocence either because I saw the Kemper Arena show. And I was still watching wrestling for years after that. So I understood what I was watching and I understood what I was getting into. This is shady shit. As long as it was entertaining for me, I was willing to accept it. To your point earlier about the feeding people to lions. Like, look, people being fed to lions die. And you're still watching. So you can't claim innocence on that. Mm-hmm. I've seen enough shady shit in the wrestling world in my lifetime that I cannot claim a moral high ground ever. I reached a point that the show was just unwatchable as a show. But if I wanted to apply a moral principle to it, I should have stopped watching the show after the Kemp Arena show. Or after the Chris Benoit thing.
Or
before that. Yeah, there's enough stuff going on there that if that's the moral high ground that I want to take, well, then why are you still watching? That's why I'm leading by saying, like, yeah, I did. Because as long as I was entertained by the show, I was watching the show. I never had a problem with it in the sense that, like, look, even back then, I put some of the onus on the performers. You have to know the shady shit that you're dealing with when you're dealing with this guy. This is the person that owns the company. They don't give a shit about you. And if you accept that, then your life is now no longer in your hands. You have put it in his hands, and if something bad happens, that's on you. So I don't feel sympathetic for those people. Sorry, I don't. Because you have to know who you're dealing with. After the Owen Hart show, if I was a WWE wrestler, I'd never work for the guy. I'd walk right out the door. I'm out of here. See ya. Like, I'm not going to keep working for you. What's wrong with you? People die on your watch. Or they get crippled, or they end up with CTE and have long-term problems. Like, whole bunch of shit. There's a whole bunch. And then after the Chris Benoit thing, all of a sudden WWE went PG. All of a sudden the church shots to the head were gone. Oh, we want to take care of our performers. What happened to all those years where you didn't give a shit?
Oh, it's the fact that they got, getting sued, right?
Correct. And Martha Hart will never allow Owen Hart's stuff to be in there because she will never forgive them, really.
No.
And understandably so. Why would you? Like, why would you? It was senseless. It was needless. It was senseless. It wasn't necessary. Owen Hart was a wrestler. Let the man wrestle. Let the man do what he does. A silly stunt for lame superhero gimmick junk thing that you came up with that wanted to do again for some reason. The guy was just biding his time until he could retire, basically. And he agreed to do a stunt he should have never agreed to. He should have been like, screw this, I'm out of here. Especially since that was after the Montreal screw job.
Yeah.
She'd be like, you screwed over my brother. Like, I'm dealing with this idiocy because of your idiocy.
But I mean, Bret Hart, he came back, right? He eventually came back to WWE.
But that's the point I'm trying to get at. Like, it doesn't matter what thing gets done. These people keep coming back. Vince McMahon has been rewarded for his stuff over decades. Vince McMahon, they just sold the WWE Network, which technically failed. It failed. They never accomplished their goal that they said they were going to accomplish. But they sold it to NBC for the Peacock Network, their streaming service, for $1 billion. Vince McMahon does all kinds of shady shit and just makes more money. It doesn't matter.
And honestly, I don't know. Do you see a day? This isn't one of the questions, but do you see a day where WWE goes bankrupt? Like it ends?
No, ever. Never.
Even after Vince is long gone?
Well, after Vince is gone, then they've already got... He has basically secured the financial viability of the company indefinitely. They were going to make $1 billion over the next 5 years. $200 million a year. Plus $300 million a year in rights fees. Plus whenever they go to Saudi Arabia and take their blood money, which is hundreds of millions of dollars. And they don't pay the talent. And whenever the talent makes money on their own, they take that away. And nobody can stop them because there's no union. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. None of it matters.
So here's the thing then on that point. This is another thing I'm wondering watching this stuff. Obviously, because it's not all... I mean, there's a variety of different wrestling leagues. Like, obviously, they talk about WCW a lot, WWE, sure, right, ECW a bit, and then obviously there's so many of the independent circuits as well.
And WCW doesn't exist anymore, ECW Correct. Doesn't exist anymore, and so on and so forth. Yes.
Even though, which interestingly enough, that's another question for another time, maybe. But here's my thing: are there any good people in wrestling? Like, who are the good guys in this, Carlos? Like,
good guys.
Like, is The Rock a good guy? Because he left, and I feel like The Rock is a genuine individual.
You mean the same Rock? You mean the same Rock who hit Mick Foley full power with steel chairs like 30 times in a match?
Yeah, that guy. Well, that's what I mean, though. But you know what I mean? because you look at the guy who he is now. Obviously, he's a movie star, and he's not wrestling anymore, and he hasn't wrestled for a while, and probably won't ever wrestle again. But you never say never.
Sure. Okay.
But I mean, like, yeah, is anybody a good guy? Like, really?
This is a very interesting.
Is JR a good guy? Like, you know what I mean? Like, now of Jim Ross of, was it AEW now?
Yeah, ACW.
right? Like, I mean, but I mean, he's been put through so much crap too, and is still with the company. I mean, let me get it wrong. Lots of these people are great interviews, right? Like listening to him talk is fascinating.
Sure.
Listening to Undertaker, Mark Calloway, who's been doing some, obviously recently since he's sort of retired.
Until the next time.
Yeah, but he's been doing a lot more interview, and he's like out of character interviews, which has been right, and it's very interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
Right, and these documentaries, The Dark Side, are very interesting. They're a lot of ways very disturbing, and some of it I wish I hadn't watched, but you can't take it back now. But like, are there good guys? Like, is there such a thing as a good guy in wrestling?
Well, okay. Let me ask you a question. I put this heading because I thought it was appropriate. Okay, let me ask you.
It says wrestling philosophical musings for.
That's correct. Yeah, but this is a philosophical musing because now you've entered into the realm of a philosophical question.
It's true. And maybe we can end on this point then, Carlos.
Yeah, I think this is a good spot. But let me ask you a question first, and then I'll answer your question to the best of my ability. But let me ask you a question first.
Sure.
Let's take a simple example. And this is an extreme example, by the way. None of this is true, allegedly. But it's a question I'll pose to you. So let's say we found out Kazoo, it turns out he's a serial killer who also kills puppies and kittens. I'm basically making him as horrible a person as I can. Like, does a lot of really bad crap. But you've known him for years. He was he was at the wedding. He was one of the groomsmen. I was there and all that stuff and all that all that jazz. And in addition to all those things, he basically randomly punches, invalids on the street when he sees them.
Pretty much the worst person ever.
Sure. But he also gives a ton of money to charity. And he's great to his kids and his wife. And yeah. So, question. You know this now. And you're like, I don't know what to do with this, but you're like, kind of just roll with it. So you're a good guy or a bad guy for rolling with it?
I think you're a bad guy.
Okay.
I think, I mean, right? Like, if you choose on your own volition, if you genuinely know all the bad stuff,
sure,
right? And you don't do anything about it, even if it's just like, hey, look, I cannot associate with this anymore. Like, at least it's something, right?
Sure.
May not be what many people would want necessarily, but you've at least said, hey, look, I'm going to take a stand. If you don't take the stand and you're, then I feel in some way you're complicit in it.
Sure. Okay. So let me extend that out now. That's the reason why I say this is a philosophical question.
No, fair enough.
Let me extend that out. So you find this out and you decide you're going to disassociate with Kazoo. And then you find out that I know about it. I've known about it for years. Now, I'm not involved in it. As far as I'm concerned, it's not my business. I don't care. Throw kittens into a meat grinder, punch invalids. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
It's your problem. So, am I a bad guy? Because I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I would say you would be.
And now, you still associate with me at that stage.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess
because I'm not directly involved.
No, but you have also withheld something.
Does it come up in conversation? Hey, Dave, we need to talk because there's a serial killer.
I would hope so. I would hope so, Carlos.
Well, I better not give you my dossiers. I've got a lot of them. I've got a whole filing cabinet. You have no idea the darkness.
But you know what I mean? Like, I think in, like, obviously it's a little bit of a different example, but in a friendship, right? Like, if you feel that important information, a friend has withheld extremely serious, important information from you.
Sure.
Knowing for however long. I mean, it's different if it's like a small amount of time, but if it's like years, right? I feel, hypothetically, because it's all hypothetical. Thankfully, I'm
allegedly
that right. I mean that's justification. I think it's in that case to be like, you know what I mean, like, because then you question it. You're like, are you the person I thought you were? Right? Or maybe you're exactly the person I thought you were.
I was gonna say, it's like, you still think this house is the real house? Please go on.
But you know what I mean, right? Like, I think there's that element, right? So, like, the more I have this conversation, the more I think, no, there aren't any good people in wrestling because you associate with a shady business and you know how shady it is and you do it anyway.
Mark Calloway's been in the business for over 30 years. He's a very big Vince McMahon loyalist. Vince McMahon is not a good person. The reason I use this extreme example, I wanted to cover layers. The first part, I made it kind of easy. But then the second part, I go, well, are you okay with then other people who are around it by association who aren't directly involved, but are just kind of like roll with it? It's like, yeah, well, that's what Kazoo does.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I don't think they're as bad.
Sure.
but I think there's I guess some element of that. And I think that's where, you have to look at the individuality of it, I guess, in some ways. But I also think it's like, what was I going to say? I'm like, yeah, I guess it's like to what degree are you involved, or do you know? Right.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets me every time is also looking at this thing is like, there are people who know full well how bad it is or can be, right? Because obviously there are some people who, like, the way you go through the business and the way you come out of the business is not the same for everybody.
Yeah.
Right. But like Chris Benoit's son is a wrestler.
Well, I think he's trying to be. I don't know if
but you know what I mean? Like, yeah, but
sure.
But the point is, like, he's trying to get in the business.
Sure.
But he knows what the business did to his dad.
Correct.
And how horribly and despicably that ended.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But
he kind of playing to your point. So let me talk about that specific one. The reason why I use this extreme example, I wanted to make it as extreme as possible so that I could convey to anyone who listens the roots, the shadiness by which the business goes. Mark Calloway's easy. Mark Calloway's been in the business for 30 years. He's been a Vince McMahon loyalist for years. He knows all that shady shit has gone on. He doesn't need to know every explicit detail, but he was there when Owen Hart died. He was there when all that other stuff was going on. He was there during the era of the unprotected chair shot. So was Stone Cold Steve Austin. So was The Rock. So The Rock, after he left for Hollywood the first time, came back and did other things. So was John Cena. So the question is, do you think The Rock's a good person or not? I don't have an answer for you. I'm not here to fast call your judgment. Oh, but John Cena's done Make-A-Wish for kids. Two things can be true at the same time. In the strict example I gave you, I literally made the man a serial killer and murderer, but he gives to charity.
Yeah, no, right.
Like,
I mean,
does it matter? Like, does one offset the other? Like,
I mean, depending on the example, I guess maybe it could. In the serial killer versus giving to charity, no. I mean, you know what I mean? You kill somebody.
Vince McMahon.
Or multiple people.
If I was a religious man, I would believe that Vince McMahon has a lot to answer for. And there's a lot of people who know what he has to answer for and still associate with him to this day. And they're involved in the world of wrestling. Owen Hart was a victim of the world of Vince McMahon. But Chris Benoit, to a certain degree, was a victim of the world of Vince McMahon. Eddie Guerrero was a victim of the world. And you'll hear, these were wonderful people. Not Chris Benoit right now, for obvious reasons. But like Eddie Guerrero. And he died of like drug overdose. The people who died of drug overdose.
Well, he died of a heart attack. There's no proof that it was a drug overdose.
Sure. But it didn't help. Let's put it that way. But it is interesting to know, and I'm not trying to go any conspiracy theory route down this with this. Yeah.
But it's interesting to know the type of heart attack. Like, it's because you read a lot of the way people died, and it's like heart attack caused by a certain heart disease, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for like all of them, right? Like the same type of heart attack, heart disease that killed Eddie Guerrero is the same thing that killed Macho Man Randy Savage,
right?
And others.
Sure. Yeah. So the point is that there is the professional wrestling business. Let me put it this way. The professional wrestling business is not clean. There's nothing clean about it. And anybody who's been involved in it for any stretch of time understands that it's not clean. But it extends beyond. Let me go beyond. Let me go beyond the obvious. Okay? You asked if Jim Ross is clean. Jim Ross has been in the business for 40 years. He knows some of the shady shit that's gone on there. He knows. He knows more than most. Some of the shady shit that's gone on there. So these are people in the back. I'll give you a simpler example. Because I can separate this as many decades as you want. We can go all the way down the line. Okay, great. And it's one of those things where you'll see these people and they'll have families and do all kinds of stuff. And you try to do, that's why I used the extreme example. I tried to give you one that at least was relatable, at least something you could, put it outside the wrestling world, but it's very difficult. As soon as you enter into that world willingly, you have to accept that you're a party to this. You're an accessory. You've contributed in some way to all of this. Everything that has happened here that is wrong, the moment you know about it or the moment you enter and take the check, you must understand that you are part of it, one way or another. Because the money that came from, another silly example. What if it turns out the school board, you go to retire as a school teacher, and it turns out the school board made most of its money from blood diamonds. So your retirement is being paid off predominantly from blood diamond money. Is that cool?
No.
You still got to retire.
But I hear what you're saying.
But like I'm saying, there's layers to this.
Yep. Nope.
And I'll give you another example similar to that. Renee Young, or Renee Paquette, who was an announcer for a couple of years back, and now she's pregnant with John Moxley's kid. John Moxley was Dean Ambrose in WWE. Blah blah blah. She was in WWE for years. Was she directly involved in anything? Not as far as I know. For all accounts, she's a very nice lady, and a good Canadian. But the thing is, she took paychecks from Vince McMahon for years.
Yeah.
Everybody who ever took a paycheck from Vince McMahon is basically dirty by association, if they know anything. And by the way, being physically in the building means you know stuff. Like, come on. You're in the same company where they basically fired people during the pandemic when they were making more money than ever. Forget about the rest of the really shady shit. How about just firing people during a pandemic when you're making plenty of money?
Yeah.
And then citing, we're losing money, revenues. It's like, so what? You just sold the network for $1 billion. But you told all the people they can't have their social media stuff. They can't possibly make money on social media. You can't have a union. You can't have healthcare included. You can't have social media. Like, you're slaves to us while you work for us. That's their business model. You're a slave.
Yeah.
But if you're Renee, you worked for that company. So are you a good person or not? That's my question. I don't know. If you met Renee, she's probably a wonderful person. Are you a good person or not? It gets really murky. That's why.
Yeah, no, I think this is a good conversation to have, Carlos.
Yeah. So that's why I leave to everybody. Like, that's why I say, like, I don't pretend. The moment, and I'll extend it one more layer, just so everybody can chew on this. This is some food for thought. When you're a viewer, you're also complicit. You contribute to the bottom line. You're part of it. You buy a shirt. You buy a ticket to a show. You patronize the product. You're lining Vince McMahon's pocket. You've helped. You've all helped. If you ever watched the show, you ever bought a pay-per-view, you ever did any of it, you've helped. That's all I'm saying. So I've made my peace with it a long time ago where I don't really, here's the reality. I treat them all like they're adults. Whatever shady shit you did, it's on you. I don't care. That's why I gave you that extended example with the kazoo thing. I go, what if I knew about it? And I just decided, like, look, you're adults, figure it out on your own. If I see a crime being committed, then I'll call it in. Otherwise, I have a strong suspicion or I know pretty comfortably that something happened. I don't give a shit. Not my problem.
Oh, Carlos.
Sorry, buddy. I've been consistent on this point.
It's true.
I've been very consistent.
You are a lot of things. Most of the time you are consistently inconsistent. But on this point, you have been consistent. I will give you that.
But that is basically what has happened. That has always been the serious problem. And it has always been very bizarre to me that some people like get into this weird fixation with, and then they try to do the separation. They ask the question you asked, like, is The Rock a good person? It's like, well, if you think that being associated to this dirty business means you can't be, well, then he's not.
Yeah, no.
It doesn't matter if he's the nicest guy in the world. In every other category, he knows what happened here. He was around. He's been in the business. His dad was in professional wrestling.
And his grandpa.
And he's a third generation star. He is not unaware.
And his daughter, his first daughter, who's like 20-ish, is trying to get in the business too.
So
yeah,
that's the best I can do. Like I just need people to understand that, like, if you don't think that you can be associated to some really shady shit and be a good person, well, then the answer is no. The moment you enter it, you understand what you're getting into, even if you don't understand what you're getting into, because you just signed in blood to be associated. Your dollars, what you're getting paid, came from somebody's blood. Just understand that. It came from somebody's blood. Someone bled and probably died for the money you're getting paid right now. You just need to understand that. Because then you go to Saudi Arabia and they make a lot of money for that, and you're part of it.
I think that's a hard thing to like put in front of anybody, right?
But they agree. They still do it.
Yeah. No.
You want your job? Go do it. That's why I use the blood diamond thing with the thing. So after your entire career, it turns out it was all built on blood diamond money. You good?
Well, obviously you're not, but you've already taken the money. So it's like, then right? You know what I mean? Like at that point.
Yeah. And if it turns out that they were doing that all the way back when you were teaching the whole time, you should have known, Dave. You should have known.
Thankfully, I'm pretty sure there are no blood diamond investments, but
allegedly.
You gotta love that word, eh? That's the word of the day on the Unnecessary Nonsense podcast.
The word allegedly gets us out of a lot of legal hot water, Dave. It gets us out of a lot of legal hot water. We are not claiming anything. Everything I've said in this podcast, except for Tom Brady's trash, everything else on this podcast is alleged. Everything else. I stand by Tom Brady's trash. But everything else, allegedly.
There you go.
But there you go. But that's kind of the thing. That's some food for thought. I think it's a good way. It's a good spot to end on. But I want people to really take it home and think about it, because when you watch this form of entertainment, just understand that's what it is. They've got a taste of it with Dark Side of the Ring. There's a lot of shady shit, and that's only what they've been able to put in air.
It's true, right? I mean, that's the thing that you get from watching it too, right? Is to think of like, this is what we know, and obviously there are other stories because apparently it's been renewed for a third season,
and there will be more.
Right? So you know what I mean? Like this stuff, those who fail to learn their history are doomed to repeat it. Well, this business, again and again and again and again.
Yeah, yeah,
and it will happen again. Another tragedy will take place.
Correct. And this is the thing: is that also AEW is a newer company. It has a cleaner slate. It's got different ownership, all that stuff. But Cody Rhodes is a second generation star. His brother Dustin Rhodes is a second generation star. They've been in the business for years. There's a lot of folks in there who have a background and history in the business. One of the people that works with them is Jake the Snake Roberts. Jake the Snake Roberts was there through the 80s. He knows. He knows. Arn Anderson is there. He knows. He knows. So it's like, you're never going to get clean from it. You can't do a completely clean break from the past. It's there. It's always there.
Yeah.
And JR is the commentator. The amount of shit he's seen, the amount of shit he's been a part of, you can't wipe it away. I watch the show because they put on a better product. That's the reason I watch that show. They do put on a better product than WWE. That's the reason why I watch it. But I also understand what I got into. I don't claim my hands to be clean as a viewer. But the second you're a viewer, by the way, your hands are not clean. Your hands are dirty. Just understand that. On that ominous note, you're all dirty.
Yeah, this is such a good pick me up at the end of the thing.
Well, could be worse. You could be dead.
It's true. It could always be worse, Carlos. It could always be worse.
Does that not make you feel better?
No. But no. But if Tom Brady loses the Super Bowl in a week and a day, it will. Yeah, it's true. Dear God, why? It's pretty much accurate all the time.
It is. Anyway, so that'll be it for us this time around. Probably by the next time we talk, it'll be on the eve of the bowl that is super.
Allegedly.
I feel like there won't be that much superness.
I agree.
But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Hopefully there's a lot of superness from Patrick Mahomes, though.
Well, it's one of those things. Like I said, part of the reason that I said, and we'll button it on this, is that part of the reason I said that I'm not too keen on watching is like, even if he does, it's like, it'll be lukewarm for me. It'll be like, it shouldn't have even come to this. I just didn't want to see this matchup. I just wasn't interested in it. Tampa Bay's participation does not interest me. It's like the Yankees thing when the baseball playoffs are on. Like, look, as long as they get eliminated, I don't care who's in it. Yeah. But the fact that they're there is like, it just puts a damper on it for me. I don't want to sit there for hours and be irritated. That doesn't seem like it to me like a good time.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep. So that'll be it for us. We're on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts, as well as YouTube, where you can watch as the soul slowly left Dave's body, as he came to the realization that his entire financial future is hinged on blood money.
Oh God.
Floating out of his body. So that's it for myself. I'm Carlos. That is Dave, who is trying to reclaim his soul and will immediately begin repenting.
Hey, I repent every day, Carlos.
Well, you probably should. At this point, you better move to the self-flagellation thing. Whip yourself. Get on with it, man. You got a lot to repent for, my friend. A lot to repent for.
We all do, Carlos. We all do.
Yeah, but I'm kind of cool with it. Anyway, so on that note, it is episode 82 of the Unnecessary Nonsense Podcast. We will catch you on the next one.